I've done 2 programs. I did EAVE in 6-7 years ago now.
2010.
Yeah, which was amazing, really, really good. And Inside Pictures 2 years after that. And I'd say probably the main, if I could probably sum up in a nutshell, there's obviously great learning from taking part in those workshops and the training that's really substantial on those courses in particular. But it's also just the network, like I'm just thinking about it, listening to you talking about the courses and just thinking about how it's affected everything and hearing you talking about, say, the legal course on Erich Pommer. I just realized that nearly everybody who I work with has come from those courses. My lawyer, one of the financiers, I kind of check in with people from those courses on pretty much a weekly basis. There's someone that calls me or I call them to ask for advice or to find out about people or projects or whatever. So it's like a constant touch point in my life, and it's really affected it's my feature. I raised the private finance for my feature based on a connection I made at Inside Pictures, so it's that substantial, really. I went on both of those courses with projects, which didn't happen, but I made other connections that other projects came as a result of that, so that's how it kind of worked for me.
Hi, there's multiple ones up here. I'm Colin Day. I have a production company here in London. I'm a dual national, so by my accent, I'm also from the States as well, and I started my career in LA and was working there for 8 years, and then started my own production company here in London about 3.5 years ago. I've produced 3 feature films, not as much as Gavin yet, but working my way. And my last film, Queen of Carthage, was a co-production with New Zealand, which was theatrically released 2015, and you can actually watch it on Netflix now if you want. That was our last deal, which was nice. But I have been in 2 programs. I did TAP in 2016. Yeah, Transatlantic Partner, sorry, we all call it TAP. And I am currently in ACE 27 this year. So I just finished our second module in Prague, which was great, the finance one, and still have one more to go. So, I don't think I can say enough about how great I think these programs are, and they kind of happened right at the right time, I think, in my career for this. I had already produced a couple features, but moving to a new market, especially in Europe and everything, it is a lot about connections and who you know and who can who can introduce you and stuff, and who you can collaborate and take advice from. And TAP and ACE have been great for that. And one of my projects that I went through TAP in, we're going into production in June next year, a co-production with Ireland. So I'm not saying it's always going to be a year later from the program, but or something like that. I was already moving quite quickly on that project, but it did help a lot with a lot of the collaboration and the right production company to work with in Ireland and things like that to move that forward. So yeah, did I answer all the questions? Yeah.
I'm just going to stand up for the hello bit so I can see everyone and they can see my Michael Jackson jacket. My name's Lisa Marie Russo, and where is this going? We're not even into the mulled wine yet. I moved to the UK in 1994. Before that, I had worked in public television in America for 10 years as a director, and I produced a low-budget feature film. And I came here to be with the person who became my husband. And I decided to focus on producing, which was slightly weird because all my connections were in TV, documentary. And so about 4 or 5 years into it, I decided to apply for ACE. I did ACE 2001, which was ACE 11. And at that time, the criteria was you had to have produced 1 feature film. So, and the learning was really around, like, you make your film and you think you're ready to conquer the world, and of course you make your film and you realize it's just another, boulder up a hill. And it was so great to be part of the ACE family, and at this point, I've produced or executive produced, I think, 10 films, feature films, and loads of shorts. I'm making short films with Random Acts for Channel 4. I've worked with Gavin when he was at Skillset, and that's influenced a lot of the other work that I'm doing. There's a lot of circuitous ways that I think being involved in ACE has influenced me since that time. I didn't make my ACE project, but I did learn how to put a project together, an international co-production, but also how to do that within the UK and use those skills to do multi-party finance. Was there anything else in the long list of, yeah, okay.
Perfect, thank you very much. So you know who's at the top table. We've got quite a few questions for our speakers here on my secret list, but I would like you guys to ask questions, so think about them, and please do use this opportunity. People traveled a long way to meet you today, so it would be great if you were ready to ask them some questions. So to stay with the producers for a bit longer. It is about the learnings, and it is about making contacts. So first, maybe let's unwrap this learning business. Is it possible to teach producing? Is it not that you just learn it by doing? How those courses really facilitated your learnings from learning on the job?
I suppose the one thing from EAVE was there's quite a strong focus on just like producers together. I mean, you go there with a project and you can take a writer-director with you for certain bits, but they do emphasise that a lot of it is just the producers on their own to talk about how they work. And there were very practical sessions on like how do you build your business, how do you sell yourself, your projects, what's the kind of long-term plan for you and your business? How does that compare to people in other countries, what we can learn from each other, how we can work together? So there were very solid sessions on business skills and how to build your own production company, essentially, because people were coming with a project but not necessarily thinking about the kind of 2, 3, 4, 5 year plan. So we had very scary Linda Beef. I don't know if she still does that, but she really kind of she makes you, in a world where it's not very tangible and it's all kind of ideas and things, it really gives you a very solid structure and purpose. So that was super helpful in terms of EAVE. Trying to think that'll do for now.
Okay, thank you. And I think perhaps just by sort of networking and mingling at festivals, you can get pretty good picture of how we work with each other in Europe, because it's a little bit closer. But then Canada, I think, how does this clash of the two continents work at the course? Could you?
Sure, yeah. Actually, ACE now, yeah. So this year we had 2 Canadian producers in ACE, which I think is the first year that ACE has done that. Transatlantic Partners, you have America, Canada, and Europe. So it's like 6 producers from each one of those territories and everything. So it is really, co-producing across the Atlantic and everything. But no, I think it's with the Canadians specifically, it's great to know. I mean, they actually have a lot of benefits there, and a few European countries have done quite a few co-productions with Canada. Ireland, especially, is one that works quite a bit with them. So getting to know the Canadian producers is quite nice because they're all from different territories too. It's a really big territory, like each one has its own region, its own tax benefits in each place. Like it's a lot different than Toronto and Montreal compared to Vancouver, and then even in the middle of the States. So getting to be in a training program like this with 6 qualified producers from their area, is just knowledgeable in itself, whether you want to shoot there or not. I mean, like you just gain a lot of knowledge how it works with an actual treaty. Do you do a co-venture instead of not a treaty? Just depending on what you actually want to get done. Things like that. Did I answer that question about Canada?
And to do with networking, if you could just volunteer to answer. It's about building the networks, right? Getting to know other like-minded producers. They're like-minded because they have also enrolled on the course. Why is it better or yields better results if you do it through the training course rather than just being in Berlin or in Cannes?
That is like one of the key points, I think, to being involved in these courses. Like, yes, of course, you can, the month ahead of Berlin or the month ahead of Cannes, you can decide who you want to try and meet. You can put your whole itinerary together because you have to go to these festivals prepared and doing all this thinking ahead of time. But like with ACE, we have support around the year. So there's a lovely ACE apartment in Cannes where you can also have meetings, and there's lunches. And it can help you structure your day of how you're going to, otherwise Cannes can be really overwhelming. It's like the best of times and the worst of times. And that's like the logistical side of where you can park yourself. But also, as Jacobine was saying, you have access to the other members in the network, because I have a German co-production right now. If I wasn't in ACE, I'd go, okay, how do I find a German partner? It's like finding a needle in a haystack. This just cuts you right through into those networks.
Yeah, and I'd also say as well that both with EAVE and Inside Pictures, you spend 3 weeks very intensively with a small group of people. So you just get to, obviously, if you're looking for creative collaborators, you just get to know them really well, and not just, and lots of drinking as well, all that kind of stuff goes on. And not just producers, but there's sales agents, distributors, funders, and you just get to meet them on a whole different level. And actually, the great thing about EAVE as well was, at the last workshop, people, kind of decision makers, come from around Europe to meet you to talk about your projects, and they just see you in a different context because you're just meeting them in a one-to-one scenario, and you have dinner with them and drinks and all that kind of stuff. So even people from the UK who I hadn't managed to meet properly here, I just met them in Belgrade in a restaurant in a whole different scenario, and it just kind of cemented me in their mind as someone that was like doing a project and they should know. So it was much more helpful than just kind of attending the festival and trying to get those meetings. So it had the personal element to it.
Lovely, thank you. Thanks very much. Any questions from the audience to our guests? Not just yet. We're still thinking. Oh yes, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, can you hear me? Just a quick question. Can you apply with more than one project to both EAVE and ACE?
Can you apply with more than one project?
Exactly, yeah.
Well, one by one, I think you'll have to take it.
Yeah, well, normally you apply with one project. If you have doubts, it's better that you contact us before applying to discuss which one is better to apply with, because there may be some elements to it that you don't know, that what makes one project more eligible, or it's at a better stage. I would actually like to use this moment to say that I really encourage everybody, whatever you apply to, please look into it early enough, because very often people have their questions on the deadline day, and that's impossible. So what I really encourage, for instance, we are very happy to meet people. So if our application deadline is in late August, contact us in April to set up a meeting in Cannes in May, and we can discuss everything.
I've also had people share their applications with me, like the day of the deadline, asking me for advice, which is quite, it's really scary.
With ACE, you also apply with one project. And maybe I should also mention, because there is a selection process, so it might happen that you're not selected, and that doesn't mean that you cannot apply another time. But I mean, the selection goes really like in how do you say? What is this again? What's the name? Tunnel. It's a tunnel. So when we invite you for an interview, there is already quite a big chance, but still we have to make a selection. But sometimes it does happen, and I think Satu mentioned it also, is that you might come with a project to the workshop, and throughout the workshop you find out, like, okay, this is actually not the right project for this workshop, or this is not the right project for me, or I really have to not even put it on the shelf, I just ditch it. That's also part of the whole learning process, because sometimes you might be attached to a project, and then throughout talking with producers and other professionals, you just find out, okay, this is just simply impossible to make. And that is not shameful at all. I think that's beneficial, because that might also be the reason for taking part in the course, and not only my course or the course I organize, but I think several of them.
And Dina, for you?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, for transatlantic partners, you can apply with up to 2 projects, but then they should be of different format. So if one of them is a feature film, the other one has to be a TV drama project, so you can't apply with 2 feature film projects. And all the other courses are not project-based.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Thank you, everyone, for your lovely presentations in the first place. I'm Eleni, I'm from Georgia, and I've done the Erich Pommer Institute's workshop about European co-production, so if anyone has questions, I'm also willing to give some feedback on that. I definitely recommend it to everyone. My question is regarding to building a sustainable film business, because in Georgia, in general, film financing is so small that you don't even think about in those terms, which I found to be one of the most useful and important discussions at the Erich Pommer Institute. So I would like to hear from other participants how they found these workshops useful to start thinking more in that direction. And
so I think we're moving away a little bit from the projects to businesses. How those skills that you acquired at the courses help you run your company and make it more sustainable.
I think one thing I was thinking of, and it related to your earlier point, was, can you teach producing? And I think, how do people come into producing? Many ways. It might be physical production, like they've been a line producer. They might be involved in finance. They might have come through script development at the BBC. And I myself came from documentary. So what does this mean? You need to have these skills across all these areas that I've just mentioned. And usually you don't have all of those skills. You're stronger in one area. When you go on a course like ACE, this is helping you build up all these skills so you can be a producer that can manage in every single capacity. And then that transfers itself to, as well, if you're going to run your own company, because you need to know about the finance side if you want to run your own company. But you may find yourself being a really great asset to a bigger company. These are the kind of questions you can be asking yourself. Where do you fit in the world? Because it's really hard to make a living as an independent producer. But if you're under the wing of somebody else, that might be a better place to be. I find it's a very personal, commitment to having a creative life and how you want to shape that for yourself.
Yeah, and I think the courses have different focuses. So EAVE was very much, as I said earlier on, about how do you build a sustainable business and what's your long-term plan. Inside Pictures is more about how do you make a big project that you actually earn some money from in a more commercial sense. So that's sort of building a company, or just making sure that you earn money properly as a producer from project to project. So I mean, it depends on the course as well, and also, like as Lee's saying, it depends on you. I think you just get a stronger sense as well, taking some time to reflect on yourself and where you fit in. If you want to run your own company, match with someone else, or all these different kind of opportunities, that's what it helps you kind of think about.
Sorry, I just need to plug in the advertising break, because we're talking about Inside Pictures and we don't have Inside Pictures here. So just to make a little Inside Pictures is another course of this kind, which is actually based here in the UK at NFTS, and Gavin had a fortune of going through that one. I think the differentiating feature of Inside Pictures would be that it's not very different from Transatlantic Partners, because it's also looking towards North America and equipping European executives with those skills that will enable them to work with the studios.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be obviously more originally more British, but now it's completely European, how to connect Europe and North America. And also now, because it's interesting what you're saying about television, I am actually interested in European TV possibilities. And I think Inside Pictures is doing more of that as well. So these courses are great because they're obviously up to date with what's going on to equip you with the new skills. I'm thinking now, I haven't done a course for a while, but actually I need to know about TV, and I need to know about TV co-production in Europe.
If I could add to that, we actually noticed that it's a very natural transition. So Transatlantic Partners started off 10 years ago as a program for only feature film projects. And then we noticed over the course of the years that more and more producers were interested in doing TV drama as well, or switching to TV drama and vice versa. So we introduced the TV component, I think 3 years ago. And it was really a very natural transition, as I said. So we started, I think, with 30% of TV projects, and this year was actually 50-50. And the producers that take part in Transatlantic Partners actually have to be interested in doing both, because the content and the topics cover both of these aspects.
Just to bring up on that, because like I didn't, because I went into Transatlantic Partners with just as a feature film producer, and learned a lot from all the TV producers that were there and all the other stuff, and I wasn't as knowledgeable about it at that time, and now I am developing TV from that, even though I didn't go into the program with that in mind, that that's what I was going to get out of it. So it does, yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Any other questions? Yes. Oh gosh, good.
I feel like I should stand up because everybody else in this room should be my teacher. Really, literally, I'm just graduated from film school like this September, and I'm here because I want to be a producer in the future. And thank you so much for sharing all this experience. It's really amazing. But I feel like all of the programs is exclusively for the people who's already like start their own business or already be a producer. If I've experienced like more than that. But is there any way for us, like less than 5 years experience, is there any way for us to be involved in? Or if not, could you please like share some kind of experience that I could fill in this 5-year gap, like effectively? Thank you. Thank you so much.
Maybe I can try, because we, as I said, there's a wider palette of the courses. And these 3 are really quite, yes, they are continuous training, we call them. So it is for people who are already in the industry. But there are other courses. And I think what you would love is something like Berlinale Talents. Has anyone had experience of?
Good, yeah.
Could you?
I haven't done it, but it's amazing that you can.
I haven't done it either, but I like to
Everyone
hang
else has
around.
done it.
We lurk around there.
So you see, there's different levels. Perhaps talk to us at the desk afterwards, and we will be able to point you in a different direction. But there's a whole kind of journey with Creative Europe, because it's at the core of it all is this support program. So we support producers, well, not from the graduation level quite, but they have to be active in the industry, and slowly and surely they will be finding their ways to be supported more and more and more and more. So, as I say, Berlinale Talent Campus possibly is one of those earlier entry courses. Then there are courses for people who are a bit more advanced, and eventually you find yourself eligible for development grants.
Wait, really?
But I think you could also be really strategic about it, from a work experience level, like identify the producers whose work you like in the UK, go to them, say, do you take interns, or do you need any help, or try to get involved with producing more short films, and try and, build those relationships and see if you can just get involved with helping other producers and getting some kind of job on one of their films. I mean, it depends on what kind of job if you need a job right now, what you imagine that job is, and doing it as a combination of possible courses, but hooking up with somebody that will get you en route to that.
Could I just ask you guys also that if you don't manage to be an ACE participant or an EAVE participant, on your website or through your other kind of wider access events, can people engage with you before they become a trainee, if you like? Are there like case studies maybe published on websites, or is there any of them? Can they be tracking you before they get there to be part of you?
Not really. We are sharing our case studies and our presentations with our producers, but not publicly, because normally otherwise they would not be shared. We are very approachable, and we're very happy to advise people. For instance, what I do a lot in Berlin and Cannes, I meet all kinds of producers, even if I see that they are not ready for EAVE yet. Try to figure out what they would need. I mean, of course, we know quite well what is happening in the industry. I also wanted to mention one other producer training that is for a lower level. That's called Maya. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Was there a question?
Yeah, first of all, thanks very much for coming, everyone, and sharing incredible knowledge. Really, really cool. I have a question for Gavin, specifically about Inside Pictures and your experience of doing that course, whether you came to that with the project and whether that worked out for you, because I think you mentioned that it didn't. And the other question is for EAVE ACE and the Erich Pommer Institute, whether you communicate between yourselves, the networks, whether they're interconnected, and whether you work with organizations like PAC, Directors UK, BAFTA, and whether, say, if I become a member of EAVE, whether it'd be possible for you to connect with, say, scriptwriters or directors or specific avenues to create content.
Yeah, so EAVE, Inside Pictures, the last workshop you have to present a project to quite some very big people in the UK industry. So I took a project through that didn't work out. If you're a financier or a sales agent distributor that's doing the course, everyone has to have a project, whether it's real or imaginary, to present, to go through the scenario. That project didn't work out, but it's a great showcase to kind of show that you kind of know what you're talking about and your taste and where you want to be as a producer. So that to your colleagues on the course and also to the industry. So that then led to other doors opening. And like I said, the film I've just made, the financier for that came through Inside Pictures. So that's how that worked out in the end, if that answers your question.
Yeah, so you were asking if we connect. With EAVE, we do actually a lot. We meet up at festivals and we organize events together, which is very valuable for us because a lot of the producers who've done EAVE might be eligible at a certain moment also for ACE. So I think it's very important. With Erich Pommer, we are in touch, but a bit less so. And we do have events at festivals where we do meetups, like for example next Berlin we have a session with EAVE and ACE producers meeting Nordic composers, for example. So there is specific events at festivals or in other territories for sure.
I do think, sorry to cut in though, it's not really like ACE is going to find a writer for your project. I don't think that's a good way to think about it. It's a really amazing way to work on your project. And like Emmanuel and Marilyn Milgram, who I'm working with separately, who also works at the BFI, are amazing, amazing script brains that you would have access to. But if you're actually looking for individual writers, say in the UK, I think there's other ways to do that that are more efficient.
Well, I would like to mention we also collaborate with Sources, which is a writer's training program. And how we do is we basically share information. So we sort of introduce our annual network with their annual network. But that's it. It's basically just like a catalog of people. But we don't start to matchmake individually.
I was just going to say, I agree with Lisa on that for what the actual programs are. But the one thing you can get out of it with the relationships you make with your fellow people there, the experts and everything, is your network grows and they do know writers and directors they work with, or, so like it can go that way. You ask for advice. Maybe you're looking for a director or writer for a specific project, and you can ask one of your fellow ACE or TAP or Inside Pictures or whatever, and they can, do an intro, which is great. And you can just kind of go from there. That's what I do a lot with the connections. I don't know every writer. I know that writers worked on one project, and I happen to know the producer that worked on that project, and ask for an intro, see if it works out. I'd say that would be more the benefit of like the network and stuff. Yeah,
exactly. Yes. It's coming.
Hello everyone, my name is Kate Coe. Just you talk about, let's say, for application feature film. Does it have to be a feature film or feature length film? And also coming from that, let's say even if it's a feature film, as we classically know, does it have to be mainstream-ish, or it could be an art film, feature film, or what kind of film, feature film? Can you be a little bit more specific? And does it mean whether it's important how it was distributed or how it's done well in the market, where it's done, what the market was, that kind of thing?
So for EAVE, feature film actually just means the length. So you can't come with a 10-minute short, but anything from 70 minutes up, basically. What kind of film? Actually, the only criteria is that it has to have some kind of international appeal. It doesn't even have to become a co-production, but it has to have some potential to go at least to some festivals, so not like totally local. And then the most important criteria is the stage, so it has to be early development, because you will still be working on the script development and on the whole development of the production. We don't have any kind of criteria about if you have funding already or not. Yeah. Yeah. A previous film. No. Actually, I think I said it, that we don't have any criteria. If you look into our website, you will not find anything, because we are really, like I said, we are selecting people. So we try to identify whether it's the right moment in your professional career. And you can't really say when that is, because people are different and they have different backgrounds. So for instance, we have had some people who did a long career as sales agents, and then they started to produce, and they hadn't produced anything yet, but they knew the industry. So that can be the right moment. But if you just, studied at the film school, then you have to actually work in the industry for a while to be on the level of knowledge. Just, having the basic knowledge about how the industry works and so on.
I think for us, for ACE, for example, it's important to know that we look at it on a case by case. It's really on the person itself. In this year's program, we have a producer who's produced a lot of documentaries, and she co-produced maybe fiction features. But I mean, she has so much experience and Oscar-nominated documentaries. Then I mean, that's a different case, of course. And for example, in our current selection, it's also to say something about the diversity of the projects. It goes from art house to commercial, from family film to animation, and sometimes not in this year's selection. Sometimes it's also documentary. So it's not rigid in a way.
That would be similar for you, right? Okay. Any more questions? Yes.
Hello, thank you so much for coming. It's an invaluable experience. I just wanted to ask about the projects and what stage they should be for the different courses. Because if it's a television project, would you need a script and a Bible, series Bible, or what stage?
It can be different stages. So the difference maybe to EAVE is if you have a project, it has to have an international co-production appeal. It has to have elements for co-production, otherwise it just doesn't make sense. The ideal stage is if you have a script. It can be much further on. You can have some financing, but you don't have to. It's also case by case, so it really, you have to go into the program and really be able to find some elements that will help you develop your project. But it's very helpful if you have a script in place.
For us, it is in some cases you can come with an advanced treatment, but it should be preferably a script. It really also depends on the case, because you will work on it with a script editor. So it's only beneficial when you have a script and you can really take home a lot of advice. That can happen with an advanced treatment, which will evolve into a script during the course. But for us, that's the stage, and in some cases there's already a financing attached. In some cases there's already co-producers attached. That really depends on the case.
Lovely. Any more questions? Yes, Carl.
First, I'd like to back up Satu. I did EAVE 20 years ago. And that was incredibly valuable. Our project was pretty much picked apart completely by a finance expert. But we were in production a year later, sort of proving him wrong. But it's very important to bring your writer there, because I think we only achieved that success, and anybody who's going to apply, try to find a way to take your writer there, because after you've developed a few drafts with your writer, there are quite some cobwebs, and you've got some good people to blow all that away. My question is really to Agnieszka, because there's been an announcement a few months ago about the BFI Future Film Fund, and that they're going to be £20 million administered by Barbara Broccoli and so on. Are there any efforts or maybe any engagement of the panel to make sure that some of that money can be accessed to access these kind of courses?
Wait, what do you mean £20 million administered by Barbara Broccoli?
Well, there was an announcement about the BFI Future Film Skills Fund, and apparently that's going through skill set, but here it gets a little bit foggy. But
well, it's just too early to ask, but the fact that skill set has now got the deal is progress, right? So I don't know if there's other providers as well, but I think skill set is firmly in the picture, and they, with their experience, they will hopefully do the right thing, and will be certainly on them to not forget the international dimension of all this training, because previously Skillset was quite a good partner for you and for you.
Yeah, I mean, I used to work with Skillset. They subsidised the Inside Pictures courses. They had international scholarships to pay for people to be able to do these courses. So individual bursaries. There was quite a lot of. They supported Berlinale talents for emerging talent to be able to go to Berlinale. So there was a whole suite of activities that they had on a kind of international level, and I assume they'll still prioritise those things.
I got an international scholarship to do this, so one of the last ones that you could get before they stopped it. So.